I want to ask you a question. What's the largest number you can think of? Perhaps you've seen it before in real life. Maybe you've only heard its name before. And maybe, just maybe, you've reached it before. You were able to see it, feel it, experience what it's like to see an unimaginably large number that you know you wouldn't see anywhere else. It's mesmerizing, isn't it? Knowing that you've reached something humanity will never reach in reality. It's a dream that every human wishes to experience, to see something they can't ever grasp. And yet, we've made it possible. What was once only but a dream is now something anyone can experience. And it all starts with one little click. Incremental games almost feel like an anomaly, don't they? It seems strange that people would enjoy sitting around clicking something only to see a number go up. I'll quickly explain what an incremental game is just so we're on the same page. An incremental game, also called idle games or clicker games, which is what I will be calling them from now on, are games that are based on two central mechanics: a clickable object and a way to automate clicking said object. When the player clicks the object, their money goes up. Simple. This money can then be used to purchase means of achieving the second mechanic, automation. Basically, the player can use the money they get to buy money generators, which are usually called buildings, which will then automatically generate money for them. From this point on, the simple cycle repeats. Click the object, get money, buy automation to make more money, and keep going as far as you can. Sometimes there's more than one object, especially in modern clicker games, but for simplicity, we can assume the games I'm talking about only have one. But why is this type of game so addictive? This is the question I'm going to answer today, and it all starts with one game: Cookie Clicker. Before I can explain the psychology behind clicker games, I have to talk about the biggest of them all, Cookie Clicker, and its history. Cookie Clicker has two versions, the classic version and the big update version, which I will call the modern version. For now, I'll just talk about the classic version. I'll let you know when I begin speaking about the modern version instead. Cookie Clicker was created by French developer Julien Thienot, who goes by Ortail, on August 8, 2013. He created the game in just a single night, which he then proceeded to post a link to on 4chan. The game immediately blew up, managing to gather around 50,000 players in mere hours. Eventually, the game reached a peak player count of 1.5 million players in a single day. From then on, it managed to stay at over 200,000 players a day for months to come. This version of the game was very simple. There's a picture of a cookie, which acted as a clickable object for the game, a cookie counter to count the player's currency, which was aptly named cookies. For clarity's sake, I will call the clickable object the big cookie and the currency simply cookies. A status bar, which told the player how popular they were in the in-game universe, and a list of buildings, which acted as the automation part of the game. When you click the big cookie, you gained a single cookie in your currency. When you reach 15 cookies, you can buy the first building, the cursor, which automatically clicks the big cookie every 5 seconds, making you a single extra cookie for each click. As you bought more buildings, your cookies would dramatically and exponentially increase, eventually allowing you to buy even more expensive buildings. After some time, you would eventually be able to buy the most expensive building, the time machine. From this point on, the only thing left to do was keep making more cookies until you simply didn't feel like it anymore. A simple pattern, achievable with simple gameplay. Eventually, on August 24th, 2013, Cookie Clicker received its biggest update yet, aptly called the Big Update, which overhauled its graphics and added much more gameplay mechanics to spice up the simple loop of Cookie Clicker Classic. From this point on, I'll be talking about the modern version of the game, so whenever I say Cookie Clicker, just assume I'm referring to this version now. The Big Update added a few important things: completely new graphics, a huge amount of upgrades for both the big cookie and the buildings, a ton of achievements, and new statuses for the status bar, which was now officially named the News Ticker. Further, in February 2016, Ortail added the Legacy update, which added an option that, after a certain milestone amount of cookies, allowed you to restart the game with new permanent boosts to your cookie making abilities. With these important features added, the game was now complete on a foundational level. The player clicked the cookie, bought buildings to automate the clicking, buy upgrades to increase the amount of cookies they made, restart the game with permanent boosts, and repeat essentially forever. And thus, Cookie Clicker was now at its peak. From here on out, Ortale added more buildings, achievements, and upgrades, which were all meant to recognize a player's dedication to reaching ever-increasing amounts of cookies. Currently, the game has 716 upgrades, 639 achievements, including secrets, and 20 buildings, with the average playtime to quote-unquote complete the game taking roughly 500 plus hours. However, since the game never really finishes, and there's always more things to do, it can take literally thousands of hours to entirely 100% the game. With the history of Cookie Clicker out of the way, let's finally answer the original question. Why is this type of game so enjoyable and addictive? My answer to this game will be split up into 3 parts: numbers, popularity, and completionism. I'll discuss these 3 parts separately in this order. Let's begin with numbers. In reality, I don't believe that numbers are what humans are actually interested in. Of course, it's extraordinarily intriguing seeing massive numbers that you would never be able to actually grasp mentally, but there's more to this attraction than the number itself. But why then are we like this? I believe that this is answered by considering 2 different factors: human evolution and societal incentive. Don't worry, this video won't be entirely about evolution like my last one, but it's still an extremely important factor for the numbers part of my answer, so let's get into it. Human evolution plays a massive role in virtually all human behavior. Despite humans being intelligent enough to be considered above the level of animals, we are still, scientifically speaking, animals. We evolved just like everything else did, and through this evolution, modern humans have picked up a plethora of different behaviors. One of these behaviors is greed. The first one, food, is the most influential in the development of this behavior. Before civilization made food more accessible to a large number of humans, it was not nearly as simple as going out to your local shop and buying your favorite cereal to eat at midnight. Humans had to hunt to survive. This hunting took energy, as hunting required successfully subduing an animal that was likely to sprint away from you at max speed. If you didn't catch it, you likely weren't eating that day, as you had to rest a long time afterwards for energy recovery. This is why having a large amount of food was so beneficial to early humans. If you were able to complete multiple successful hunts, you would be able to stock up food for possibly days, leading to a long supply of energy and virtually ensured survival, as starvation was no longer an option. Thus, the human brain figured that having lots of food was clearly good, meaning humans quickly learned to become greedy for food and other resources to ensure their own survival. Thus, greed was born. In the modern day, this greed has now carried over to money. This is what I mean by societal incentives. Humans are naturally greedy, and since money is now used to purchase these resources that make our lives easier and more comfortable, money is effectively the food for modern humans. Our brains have linked more money to an easier and better life, and so we are now greedy for money. The most important part of all this is that money is represented by numbers, and as these numbers go up, life tends to get easier. This is why humans are so attracted to large numbers. According to the brain, bigger numbers must mean a better life. This is why idle games, and therefore Cookie Clicker, are addictive from a numbers standpoint. Cookies are analogous to money, so when your brain sees the cookies going up, it automatically sees this as a good thing due to its evolution. Next, we have popularity. This one sounds a bit strange at first. However, I must remind you of a certain aspect of Cookie Clicker that I mentioned before but never expanded on: the news ticker. At first, this may just seem like a funny little addition for players to watch as the game goes on. This isn't necessarily wrong, however, there's another purpose for it. How the news ticker works is that as you get higher and higher cookie amounts, it will slowly start adding new messages that talk about your in-universe popularity growing. For example, when you have made your first 100 cookies, the news ticker says this: your cookies are popular in the neighborhood. But when you get to 5 billion cookies, it now says this: the whole planet is enjoying your cookies. Most humans would be ecstatic to see this kind of message in real life, as they are now extremely popular and have achieved fame beyond their wildest dreams. But why do they like to see this? I have 2 answers to this, with the second one being what I personally believe to be true. The first answer is that since you are now extremely popular, you are now surrounded by tons of people who adore you. Of course, you will have the occasional person who is, for lack of better words, a hater, but they will easily be tuned out by the seas of adoring fans. What does this mean for you? We have to once again look at human evolution for this answer. Humans are and always have been social creatures. This is because being in a large pack with other humans tends to be safer. Imagine you're a cave person trying to go get some water from the local pond to drink. If you were alone, you'd be easily ambushed by a predator, as you'd only have 2 eyes looking in a single direction at any given moment. Further, you'd have effectively no chance to fight back if it were to attack, as it would be a 1 versus 1 where you were almost certainly ambushed. Now imagine the same scenario, but you're with 10 of your friends. There's no chance a predator would be able to hide when there's 10 of you. Further, in the worst case scenario where someone does get caught out, the rest of the pack will be able to help fend the predator off, thus saving the person being attacked. Although this evolutionary behavior isn't necessary in your average modern day, it's still carried over with our human brains. We still see packs as safe, so having the largest pack of all through your fame and popularity is going to be seen as the safest thing possible by your brain. Let's now move on to the second answer, which is the one I personally believe in more. Let's look at the human brain from a more modern approach. Neurotransmitters. A neurotransmitter is effectively a chemical your brain uses to make you feel certain emotions. That's not the entire story, but it's enough for my explanation. Oxytocin is one of these neurotransmitters. It's sometimes called the love hormone, as it makes you feel good when you are with other people. Another important one is dopamine, which is the feel-good hormone. It is released when you are doing something that gives you pleasure. Simply put, when you're with other humans, your brain releases oxytocin, which makes you feel good. Since you feel good, it now releases dopamine, which makes you feel happy. This is extremely simplified, but it's more than enough to understand the general idea. Since being with others is a direct conduit to feeling happy, your brain now links being with other people to happiness. As such, being with more people equates to more oxytocin, and thus, more happiness. This is why humans enjoy being popular. More people like them, so they spend more time around lots of people, meaning they're receiving larger and larger doses of oxytocin, which leads to extreme amounts of dopamine, and thus, more happiness. Thus, when the cookie clicker news ticker tells you that you're the most famous person on Earth right now, your brain will be happier, as you're with more people. I'll mention one final thing for this section that is common between both answers. The more popularity you have, the more likely you are to be rich. This isn't a guarantee, but in modern society, it's far more common to see a famous rich person than a famous non-rich person. This means your brain naturally links being famous to being rich. Thus, seeing your popularity grow through the news ticker means you must be getting richer, which then links back to the first point. Finally, let's look at completionism. Completionism can be defined as wanting to complete something such as a game or a collection, or to experience as many things as possible connected with something. In the context of Cookie Clicker, I will be talking about achievements. This one can also be explained through neurotransmitters, but this time we only need dopamine to explain it. However, I do now have to mention one more thing, the brain's mesolimbic system, or, more simply, the reward center. This part of your brain works by releasing dopamine when it experiences a stimulus that it associates with a positive outcome. Basically, when you do something that leads to a good outcome, your brain releases dopamine, which, as I explained earlier, leads to happiness. As I also mentioned earlier, Cookie Clicker has 639 achievements, and every time you complete one, a little pop-up at the bottom of the screen appears with a sound. The brain understands the stimuli of the pop-up and the sound as good, as getting achievements in games are typically positive things. This means that every achievement you get makes the brain release dopamine within the reward system, making you happy. As such, being a completionist means you will be completing a large amount of achievements, all of which release dopamine into the brain, making you happy each time. I know that was all a bit much, so I'll quickly summarize what I talked about. The main takeaways are this. Cookie Clicker is addictive for 3 reasons: numbers, popularity, and completionism. Numbers are addictive because your brain sees cookies as money, which is usually correlated to a better life the more money you have. Popularity is addictive because the more people you know, the more oxytocin your brain releases, leading to more dopamine being released, making you happier. Completionism is addictive because each achievement releases dopamine, so the more achievements you complete, the more dopamine you release, leading to more happiness. Clicker games don't seem like someone's first candidate for the definition of an enjoyable game. However, they're still beyond enjoyable. This, however, no longer needs to be anomalous. Cookie Clicker and other clicker games are enjoyable due to their ability to truly get to the core of human psychology. They know how to go beyond the outer shell of a human being and get to what makes humans, well, humans. Human nature is so complex for so many reasons, and yet, clicker games are able to capture the essence of this complexity by capitalizing on 3 different parts of our psychology. Numbers, which are utilized through greed, popularity, which is integral to humans as a whole, and completionism. which is a direct path to the reward center of the brain. Does this perhaps mean that clicker games can be seen as the predator I kept talking about in the popularity section? After all, they prey on our easily moldable minds, getting to the core of what makes us happy, consuming us from the inside out. Perhaps they are the predators, and we are the prey. And yet, who's truly letting them do this? Sure, they're addictive, and they do use our minds to keep a strong grasp. But in the end, whose mouse is the one that moves to the icon to start the game? Whose hand does the bidding of the brain? After all, addictions can start with one little click. Thanks for watching. I'll be honest, I totally wasn't expecting to make a video on Cookie Clicker of all things. I've always loved incremental games ever since I first saw Ant Venom playing Cookie Clicker 10 years ago. They're so simple, yet so fun, and as I explained throughout the video, it's kind of become a monster all on its own now. I don't think I'll ever stop enjoying clicker games, even if they are a massive time sink, all just to see large numbers. But hey, people change a lot within even just a single year, so who knows? Maybe one day I'll break out of the loop. Regardless, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. I really enjoy making these kinds of videos, so I hope you enjoy the hard work I put into them. Anyways, that's it for me. Have a good day.